I use those same two types of bends to get from into the second golden register, which is from middle G to tuning note C. And when I'm practicing that, I'm still practicing strength and freedom. All these principles are the same, but now I'm going to start on middle G and work my way up. So I might do something like... There's a couple of things to notice about that one. Again, I'm combining bends with moving long tones. At this point, just half steps. The other thing to notice is at the end, I did what I think of as a relaxation. Actually, one of my mentors just passed on to me a delightful practice tip that he got from Bud Herseth. And the practice tip that he gave him was to make sure that you always stop practicing when you feel amazing. So not to take it past that. In my practice sessions, I will not take myself to complete absolute fatigue. I'll take myself to a place where I start to feel it, and then I'll stop and I will pay attention to my body and I will listen very closely to the signals that it's giving me. Here's another exercise that I've developed with my students that's been very helpful to them to get this golden register, this second golden register going. So I'm repeating the bend on the G, and then I'm gradually expanding the moving long tones from a half steps to whole step to minor third to major third until I'm actually slurring partial. And the game I'm playing with myself is, do I dare trust the same approach to move a fourth that I trusted when I moved a half step? Do I dare trust the stream? Do I dare trust the exhale? Do I dare trust the song in my mind? The setup that I get from the bend, all of those things. It's a trust fall game is what I tell my students. And if you are willing to trust the center that you find and all those other things that I just mentioned, then moving a fourth feels the same as moving a half step. It feels relaxed and easy. We can use these bends to continue training ourselves to move into the upper register. There's a couple of warnings that I have to put out front here. If you're not really comfortable doing 3 half-step lip bends in the first golden register from G down to C, and if you're not really comfortable doing the half-step bends from G up to C, do not try the things I'm about to show you. Just don't do it. You will risk injury. But one of the things you realize is by doing these bends is it's a darn close simulation to the physical action that we need to do to go up into the upper register, but in a less risky register. So this combination, this balance of strength outside with freedom and close together inside, that's a really helpful principle for ascending on the trumpet. So I will use lip bends to practice developing that approach going into the upper register, starting on a tuning note C. And I may do something like this. to check with the tingling. It's feeling good. I've found with my students that anywhere they can do a half-step bend really cleanly, they probably consistently have a major third or a perfect fourth above that they can access in their gigging. Notice again that I put a relaxation in at the end of every time I got up to a place where I started to really feel it, that I descended down in arpeggio to the low register to just let things relax. This has been also a very, very effective tool for me to develop strength versus freedom and this technique of moving into the upper register. So when I say lead pipe practice, I've just removed my tuning slide from the lead pipe so that I can just play. So for most of us, our lead pipe pitch is going to be a concert E flat. I made some mistakes early on in my lead pipe practice that made it so lead pipe practice did not help me. And those mistakes were, one, playing way too loud. So I would practice like, and two, playing with a lot of tension, manipulating the pitch of the lead pipe with the middle of my embouchure. And when you practice lead pipe like that, it doesn't help at all. But if you understand that the lead pipe can be a really helpful way of measuring whether or not you've found this relaxed freedom in the middle, combined with a very together aperture, it becomes incredibly helpful. Most of my students, when I start them on lead pipe, the first sound they'll make is, they'll start low, and then to bring it up, they'll tense up the middle of their embouchure, and they'll go. But remember, the game is freedom inside, freedom and togetherness inside, strength outside. So that's kind of the sound we're looking for. I have benefited greatly from doing tons of single tonguing on the lead pipe and trying to get it to start right on that pitch, or rather trying to allow it to start right on that pitch. So I just make up rhythms in single tongue a ton on the lead pipe to invite that balance between strength and freedom to come into play. And just that by itself, lots of quiet articulation that's uninhibited, without hesitation, fearless, but where there's an immediate response and where the sound isn't this, it's this. It's a way different sound. And the difference is the first sound comes from tension in the middle, and the second sound comes from freedom in the middle. And that's the direction that we want to go, which brings us back to our real trumpet guru again. Resonant sound, easier response. The lead pipe is also kind of my go-to to introduce my students to pedal tones. And again, the practice is one of strength and freedom, and inside is not just free, but it's also very together and very much on the outer lip tissue. If you approach pedal tones that way, I feel like they can be tremendously beneficial. Personally, in my practice and with my students, I prefer to finger the pitches that we're playing just to build that body connection to pitch. I could do bends. I could do stepwise motion like scales. I could do arpeggios. or even just slurring octaves and fifths. So forth and so on. But you can see that I have to firm up outside the mouthpiece. You can, if you look closely, I have to firm up outside the mouthpiece to allow the middle to free up. Again, middle's very together, very much on the outer tissue. I am not rolling out the lip to access the pedal register here or here. It's another common pitfall for my students is to access the pedal register. They will allow either the upper or the lower lip to just roll out so that the inner membrane is giving them access to that lower register. That is not helpful practice. So you have to be very conscientious about keeping things very together, very on the outer tissue, and increasing firmness as you descend. That is the game with these lead pipe pedal tones. After feeling comfortable with pedal tones on the lead pipe, then I will often invite my students over to working on pedal tones on the trumpet. I know that this is also a much debated topic. I have found that pedal tone practice has been really an important part of me feeling healthy on the trumpet, especially once I understood this, again, strength, freedom, and on the inside, not just freedom, but together and outer tissue. So all of those things together, if you're practicing pedal tones from that lens, my experience in my own playing and with a lot of my students is that they've been very, 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 very helpful. And the approaches that we just talked about on the lead pipe, they work beautifully on the trumpet. So you have the option of playing pedals and approaching them by scale. We can use arpeggios. And so forth and so on. Pedal C, of course, often a bear, certainly for me in my practice. I'm so not a master of pedal tones. If you go listen to Arturo Sandoval or Sergei Nakaryakov, they can play like scales and things in the pedal register. It's really stunning. But for me, I still find great benefit in practicing these things. Working on pedal tones where the goal is that strength outside, freedom, togetherness, and outer tissue on the inside. I have found that to be very helpful. And then when I go back to the horn and just play, things are just ready to go. Just feels comfortable. I used to practice pedal tones where I would roll out my lower lip to access the pedal register and allow the contact point between my mouthpiece and my face to change. That's a less effective approach to those. So it would look something like this. If you're shifting the contact point with the mouthpiece, it's not the most effective practice. It wasn't necessarily harmful, but it didn't teach me what it could have taught me. And also, if you're rolling out either the upper or lower lip to the outer membrane to get that pedal register, in my experience, that probably won't be helpful to your playing. But pedal tones themselves, incredibly helpful for me. One final practice help for discovering the balance between strength and freedom for me. This is something, again, that Wiff shared with me at one point, and I don't recall who he got it from. Basically, what we're going to do is take this twisty tie here and insert it into the receiver like so. So like half of it's dangling out. And then when I put my mouthpiece back in, it'll basically, I'm putting my mouthpiece back in so it's about half as far in as usual. When I play, I will immediately discover that I have more tension in the middle of my embouchure than I need. So I'm trying to play a G. Every time I go to practice with this, I always start high. You heard I started and then I brought it down, right? So there's something about this twisty tie that for some of my students and for certain days for me, it's the thing that unlocks that balance between strength and freedom. And then once I play for a little bit with the twisty tie in, I'll go back to playing. And things just feel like they're working beautifully. So I will use the twisty tie practice on flow studies, on any of my moving long tones. I'll use it on repertoire. When I can tell that I or my students have more tension than we need, it can be a really meaningful door into letting go of the middle and letting go of the air. It's also wonderful because it invites us, or rather forces us, to be singing in our minds, because I'm not guaranteed a slot with the twisty tie in. So it accomplishes much of what mouthpiece practice can accomplish in terms of helping us cultivate a more accurate song in our minds, and seeing whether or not we're singing while we are playing. However you go about it, that idea of inserting the mouthpiece about half as much as you usually do when playing can be a really helpful technique to helping you free up the middle and strengthen the outside.